I am Spine, and this is a breakdown of the IEM Sao Paulo 2012 finals between viOLet from Team Empire and the old generation's player SuperNoVa. It is a best of 5 and the first game is played on Tal'Daram Altar. As expected, viOLet opens with a hedge and then gets a gas before a spawning pool. SuperNoVa is walling off with a command center first build. He then gets a barracks and a gas to build a factory. With a few marines, he takes his natural and starts his stim upgrade, while going for double reacted Hellions. viOLet meanwhile thrown up to 32 workers. He has 3 queens out and is walling off with a macro hedge and an evolution chamber. With this defensive position, the Hellions can't deal any damage, and SuperNoVa switches into double tank production and adds barracks to the reactors. viOLet decides to go for Infestors instead of Mutalisks. Then he catches SuperNoVa off guard and gets a big group of links into the main. He's wreaking havoc since all the Hellions are out on the map. SuperNoVa tries to micro as best as he can, but he doesn't have enough units, so he has to fight with his workers and loses 11 SCVs. viOLet starts 5 Infestors, nicely timed with the energy upgrade, and SuperNoVa decides to move out. viOLet takes the opportunity and gets yet another link run by into the Terran main. He takes down some workers and a siege tank. viOLet attacks the push head on to prevent the Terran player from fortifying this position. Siege mode is not done yet, so the Infestors fungal everything while the links take out some tanks. All the marines go down, and even though siege mode eventually finishes, with no backup, the links take out everything. viOLet crushed the army, but since he lost a lot of Infestors, and his third is just starting now at the same time with the Terran player, his supply lead is rather small. His upgrade advantage on the other hand is huge. He starts 2-2, while SuperNoVa only has +1 infantry weapons on the way. SuperNoVa tries to drop here and there and even at 2 locations at once, but viOLet defends it every time while working his way towards Ultralisks. Then 2 sneaky Infestors pop up in the main and take down 15 workers. SuperNoVa takes a siege position at his own watchtower, and viOLet has to painfully realize the tanks are super effective. But payback time is spending time, and he takes out a huge group of marines. Now SuperNoVa pushes along the top path towards viOLet's 4th and sieges up all his tanks. The Zerg player is going for a pure ground army, and he knows how to break a siege line. The infested Terrans fly out, causing the tanks to deal splash damage to friendly units, while the swarm streams in. Zerglings surround everything and Ultralisks take out the tanks. A big fungal lands on SuperNoVa's marines, and viOLet takes a convincing 50 supply lead. He keeps pushing into his opponent's 3rd base while taking a 5th. The armies go back and forth and SuperNoVa tries to kite as good as possible. viOLet rebuilds Infestors and Zerglings and rallies everything to his opponent's base. SuperNoVa stutter steps for his life, but when the reinforcements come for the flank, he has to lift everything up, giving viOLet the perfect opportunity to break the front. The bunkers and depots go down and the swarm enters the Terran main. SuperNoVa positions his Marauder siege tank combo very well behind a choke to prevent the Ultralisk from attacking. The Zerg army is very low on HP and most Ultralisks go down. But the slow moving Infestor reinforcements arrive, and then comes the money funnel from the top, and SuperNoVa GG's in game number 1. The second game takes place on Interior Shipyard and the players spawn in cross-map position. viOLet opens standard with a hedge and then a gas before the spawning pool. SuperNoVa builds a Mecharax and goes straight for an expansion. He then takes 2 gas geysers to go for reacted Hellions and Banshees. viOLet gets a roach spawn in a baneling nest as he plants some 2 base aggression. He scouts the 3rd base with links and decides to go for it. The Hellions drive around and the Banshees constantly deal damage to the army, giving viOLet no chance to morph banelings. The push fails miserable, but at least he kills the 3rd command center of SuperNoVa. Being behind 50 workers, he uses one of his inject cycles to build 10 drones at once and also starts a lair. The game is very slow paced for the next 2 minutes, since viOLet tries to catch up and SuperNoVa doesn't have an actual army as he started with Hellions and Banshees. The Terran gets his 1-1 upgrades, more barracks and add-ons, and finally a planetary at the 3rd. The Zerg gets a 3rd base, a spire and a lot of drones. At the 30 minute mark, the action finally kicks back in, when SuperNoVa is harassing the spawning pool. The Mutas pop, the transfusion hits, and SuperNoVa splits up his Banshees to try and save at least one. With the newly gained map control, viOLet takes a 4th base and produces non-stop links and mutas. Knowing a direct engagement would be terrible, viOLet swings around the Terran army to counterattack. SuperNoVa turns around and viOLet hightails out of there. This bought him enough time to get his baneling count up to 30, and as SuperNoVa attacks viOLet's 4th base, he goes for the counterattack again. The small defense of SuperNoVa gets annihilated, and the mutas and banelings go up the ramp. viOLet borrows a handful of banes and sends the rest of them straight into the mineral line. After killing the 4th, SuperNoVa elevates his army into viOLet's main, and the mutas quickly kill the command center before they return back home. The Zerg goes for the sandwich and surrounds the Terran army with Zerglings and Mutas, completely annihilating SuperNoVa's forces. SuperNoVa is now down by 40 supply and 10 workers, but he decides to siege push the watchtower, allowing viOLet to once again go for the swing around counterattack and deal devastating damage. The small amounts of marines get picked off, forcing the Terran to bring his whole army back. viOLet manipulates SuperNoVa's army movement brilliantly to land a big Baneling landmine. SuperNoVa tries to hold on, but the swarm smell blood and he is going for the kill. Mutas circlings everything streams into the Terran base and SuperNoVa GG's in game number 2. The third game is played on Shakura's plateau and the players spawn in cross-map positions. Once again both players open very standard. viOLet gets a hedge and then a gas before the spawning pool. SuperNoVa plays a command center first build and then gets a Rex and a gas to go for erected Hellions and more barracks. After 4 Hellions he switches into tank production, while viOLet starts a Slayer and gets double upgrades. SuperNoVa pushes out and starts a third command center. He sieges up on the cliff to viOLet's main, and since viOLet destroyed the rocks early in the game, he's able to attack from both sides. He gets some good funnels off but loses a handful of infestors. With a new round of units he's able to clean up the army and even land a huge fungal on the reinforcements. viOLet tries to counterattack and SuperNoVa accidentally lowers a supply depot. The circlings stream in and with a quick siege up from SuperNoVa he takes out all the links but loses 25 workers. Then the last tank of the siege position goes down and SuperNoVa loads up his marines and flies back to the base. During all of this, viOLet took a third base but a drop kills it before it could be used. He rebuilds the third at a different location and defends 2 drops in the natural and the main. viOLet manages to sneak 3 infestors into SuperNoVa's base, who missed them barely with a very peculiar scan. He unborrows and gets 4 fungals into the mineral line, killing 16 workers. SuperNoVa flies his command center to the pocket expansion and starts a planetary, while viOLet is taking to Hive. He also starts a Spire but changes his mind and decides to go for Ultralisks. Once again SuperNoVa tries to make something happen with his drop harass, but viOLet cleans up everything. viOLet's Ultras pop right as the tank marine army takes position in the center of the map and on the high ground at viOLet's third. The fight begins and the Ultralisk circling combo charges in, but the 2 tanks on the high ground deal devastating damage and kill a lot of infestors. viOLet manages to clean up everything with infested Terrans and decides to push from the north. Some of the Ultralisks are very low in HP and he does only have a single circling with his army, but the units run into the siege position. The Terran army diminishes, but the 2 tanks at the planetary are nearly untouchable. All the Ultralisks go down and viOLet GG's. Game 4 takes place on Metalopolis and the 2 players spawn across map positions. SuperNoVa opens with a gas to get reacted Hellions and secure an expansion. viOLet plays hedge first into spawning pool and then an extractor. He also steals SuperNoVa's second gas. With 4 Hellions, SuperNoVa goes into the main and loses 1 Hellion right away. He scouts the Evolution Chamber and the Roach Warren and manages to take out 5 workers. Then both players are very passive for quite a long time. SuperNoVa starts a third command center in his base and gets his marine tank composition going. viOLet takes a third base, gets a layer and goes for double upgrades. As SuperNoVa lands his third base, the Zerg gets the Infestatek started and the Roach Suite upgrade. SuperNoVa gets a 4th command center and ghosts while dropping all over the place. But viOLet has good overlord coverage and quick reactions and defends every single drop, while he takes to Hive and gets a Spire. SuperNoVa starts to push out and viOLet doesn't waste any time. He charges in with his circling Roach Infestor Corruptor army and takes out the front row of tanks immediately. SuperNoVa tries to micro but the creep has not vanished yet, so the Zerg army quickly catches up and kills everything. Knowing he dealt some pretty heavy damage, viOLet morphs 7 Broodlords to push. He kills off the middle base and continues attacking. The Vikings have no marine support, allowing the Corruptor Infestor combo to take air control. Broodlings and Zerglings stream into the natural, and SuperNoVa is trying his best to hold on. Meanwhile, 2 full medevacs landed in viOLet's base. He takes out the Spinecrawler and starts to work on the Hive. viOLet's units arrive as the building goes down, and SuperNoVa drops in a natural. The Broodlords and Corruptors are camping over the Terran's production facilities, and the drop finally gets cleaned up. viOLet's flexible playstyle allowed him to react to every strategy he saw. His good mechanics made him never miss a beat, and his multitasking helped him deal with SuperNoVa's drop harass. SuperNoVa knows he can't defend his push, so he lands some mules and GG's out of there, making viOLet the winner of IEM 2012 in Sao Paulo. A great player, a fantastic Zerg, takes first place in the prize money of $21,000. Please leave me a comment and thank you for watching.